All right, happy Halloween, everyone. Last week at this time, I was apologizing to both of my subscribers. Since then, I have quintupled my subscribers. Okay, in all honesty, I had to look that one up. Wasn't sure what came after quadrupled, but yes, I'm up to 10 subscribers. I also had a much better week. I went 1-0 on Monday, 7-7 on Sunday, and then 6-0 on Thursday. So for the week, I was 14-7 on my picks. Puts me overall at a record of 18-14, which is a 56% winning percentage. I read somewhere that the Sharps win at about a 57% rate, so pretty good, but still pretty small sample size. Let's dig into each of the games from Sunday and Monday. Eagles at Commanders. I played a Hurts anytime touchdown, and boy was I kicking myself on this one. It was right in my notes, and I shared it with all of you that A.J. Brown owns this matchup. He had 8 catches for 130 yards and another 2 touchdowns. His line looks a lot like it did the first time they played him this season. So that one hurts. Funny hurts. Hurts threw 4 touchdowns but didn't have one himself, so I missed on this one. The spread on this game was 7, and that is exactly how much the Eagles won by, so anyone who took a side pushed. It did go way over the total, though. Over-unders are generally right around 50%, give or take a few percentages, but I always feel like divisional games kind of lean towards the under because the teams know each other so well, so this one was a bit of an outlier for me. Jaguars at Steelers. I played Kirk over 55.5 receiving yards. He only ended up with 46, was 4th on his team behind Ingram, Ridley, and Etienne. I watched the red zone on Sundays and not the individual games, so I'm not sure if this was a matchup issue or the type of coverage the Steelers were playing, or if they just decided to double Kirk instead of Ridley. Hard to say. But this was really an ETN game as he had almost 150 combined yards. The Jags were favored by 2.5 in this one, and they easily covered. This game was an under by just over 10 points. And it really seemed like the rain and then the Pickett injury played a big part in this game. But the Jags are looking pretty good. I think they have the longest current winning streak in the NFL right now. Saints at Colts. I took Kamara to have 5.5 receptions. He only had 4 in this one, so I'm thinking maybe Derek Carr was listening to me last week when I called him Derek Check Down Carr, because he was airing it out in this game. His average completion in this one was over 16 yards. If I could have found the Taysom Hill rushing prop, I would have won this one. That's the one I would have gone with. I had seen like in an article somewhere where MGM was saying that the line was at like 10.5 for Taysom on the rushing yards. He ended up with 63 and 2 touchdowns. So yesterday I signed up for BetMGM to see if I can get some more options on player props. Because like I said, this one would have easily been a win for me. The Saints were favored by 1 and easily covered the spread as they won by 11. They also destroyed the over of 43.5 in this one. This is 2 overs in a row for the Colts. I don't think they've won since Richardson went down, but they are both scoring and giving up a lot of points. It will be interesting to see what their next over is set at. Definitely one we want to keep an eye on. Texans at Panthers. I took Thielen to have 5.5 receptions. He ended up with 8. And man, this one just keeps hitting. I'm going to look at this one each and every week until something changes. The Texans were favored by 3.5 in this one, but the Panthers won outright. The Panthers coaching staff just let Young loose in this one, and he came out on top. The Texans were a lot more conservative than they had been with Stroud. He only had 24 pass attempts in this one. As such, the props for Nico and Tank came up 1 short for both of them. The under hit on this game as well. Rams at Cowboys. I took the Cowboys to cover the spread of 6.5. Wasn't much drama in this one. The Cowboys won by 23. To make matters worse for the Rams, Stafford left the game with a thumb injury. He's questionable for their next game. This was an over game. The Cowboys at home against average to below average teams man, it seems like it's pretty close to a sure thing. Let's keep that in our back pocket moving forward. Falcons at Titans. I took Drake London over 4.5 receptions and ended up with 5. So, I mean, I'll take the win. The most surprising thing about this game was the play of Will Levis. He threw 4 touchdown passes in his first game. Super impressive. It makes me wonder if Tannehill will take another snap with the Titans. I think they go with Will Levis moving forward, barring any injuries, because, I mean, you got to let the rookie play, and, I mean, like I said, it might be Tannehill's last snap, and he will probably be with another team next year. The Falcons were favored by 2.5 in this one, but the Titans won outright. This was the lowest under on the board, but the total hit 51. That's all because of, obviously, Will Levis's unexpected 4 touchdowns. Jets at Giants, I took the under 35.5 on this one. The total in this punt fest was 23. Both teams scored on their opening possession, so there was 10 points right off the bat. It made me a little bit nervous. And then the punts started and didn't really stop until late in the game. The Jets were favored by 3, and that is how much they won by, so this one was another push. Patriots at Dolphins. I took the Dolphins team total of 27.5. They scored 31. They did have a late score that kind of put me over the top on this one. I had also mentioned a prop for Demario Douglas of 26.5 receiving yards. He ended up with 25, but he did do it on 5 receptions, which would have exceeded his reception prop. The reason I bring this up is because Kendrick Bourne suffered a season-ending injury in this game. So Douglas could be in line for a larger role in the Patriots' next game. The Dolphins were favored by 9.5 and won by 14. That's pretty impressive for a divisional matchup. The game hit the over by 1.5. And the Dolphins, they're interesting. I feel like at home and at indoor venues, they will be hard to stop. But they're going to have to prove to me that they can score in their cold weather road games. Vikings at Packers. I took the Packers under team total of 20.5. The Packers only scored 10 points, so this was an easy win. Love also threw an interception, like I was sure he would. The Vikings were favored by 1.5 and won by 14, and the game total hit the under. Now, while the Vikings won this game, they lost their QB for the season. He had a torn Achilles. This puts them in an interesting spot. They're 4-4, and if the playoffs started today, they would be the 7th seed in the NFC. Nick Mullins, who has been the backup for Cousins for a while, went on the injured reserve list. So the Vikings had to play a late-round rookie in this game, and will probably have to play him in the next game. So the question for the Vikings is do they go all in and try to pick up a QB to make a playoff push, or do they begin maybe selling some pieces and try to get one of those highly rated QB prospects in the upcoming draft? So it'll be interesting to see which way they go. They're kind of stuck in this no man's land a little bit. Browns at Seahawks. I took Myers to have over 6.5 kicking points. He ended up with 6. Well, I never like to lose a wager. I'm okay with this one, considering the Seahawks won the game and the Niners lost their game to the Bengals, so that makes me happy. The spread on this one was 3.5 for most of the week, but it closed on Sunday at Seattle favored by 4. The Seahawks won by 4, so some people pushed and some people didn't on this one. Just depends on where you got it. The over also hit in this one. The Browns' defense might be a little overvalued at this point. This is 2 weeks in a row. They've given up more points than expected. So something else we'll want to take a look at in their next one is to see what the over-under is, or maybe even the team total of whoever they're playing against. Bengals at Niners. Man. I took Mixon under 56.5 rush yards, and he ended up with 87. So this was a loss. But if you guys remember, I told you I was debating between the Mixon under and the Chase receiving props. Man. The receiving props for Chase, both of them hit. He ended up with 10 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. I should have known better. I always say I don't like playing the under on player props for yardage because one play they could go over it. I mean, a missed tackle, missed assignment, and boom, it's gone. So I'm definitely going to try to stay away from unders on player props having to do with yardage. I did take the Bengals to cover the spread on this one right before the game started, and I almost put some money on the money line as well. Yeah, too bad almost doesn't count. The Niners were favored by 4.5, and the Bengals won outright. It was never even really that close of a game. And the over hit on this one. Ravens at Cardinals. I took the Cardinals team total under 17.5, and the Cards ended up scoring 24. Man, I thought I had this one in the bag. It was looking good until about the last 2 minutes, and then the Ravens, man, I know they were up big, but it seemed like they just kind of quit playing, knowing this one was in the bag, and they didn't cover an onside kick. So, I mean, I'm not bitter at all. Of course, anyone who took the Ravens to cover the 9.5 point spread are probably just as bitter, as they ended up only winning by 7. So, yeah, not good. One other interesting note on this one that I missed in my analysis last week is that Zach Ertz went on the IR last week, and his backup Trey McBride had 10 catches for 95 yards and a touchdown in this game. So he's going to be someone to keep an eye on moving forward. So this was also an over game. Chiefs and Broncos, this was probably the surprise of the week. So I took Pacheco to go over his 64.5 rush yards. He ended up with only 40. The game script was all out of whack on this one for me. The Chiefs ended up having to play catch up and had to abandon the run. The Chiefs were favored by 7.5, and the Broncos won outright by 15. So all of those streaks that we talked about last week for the Chiefs just came to a crashing halt. Game ended up being an under. So with Taylor Swift's boyfriend as the only receiving threat in the Chiefs' offense, it's going to be harder for the Chiefs to have the comebacks we're used to seeing them mount. So, I mean, the Chiefs are not quite, I think, where they were last year. I mean, none of their receivers yet have really stepped up to be the second option to Kelce. So it'll something to continue monitoring moving forward. Bears at Chargers. I took DJ Moore to have over 4.5 receptions. He ended up with just 4. The Chargers were favored by 8.5 and won handily by 17. Chris Collinsworth, the announcer for the game, man, he hit the nail on the head with this one. He basically said that this is how many of us expected the Chargers to look at the beginning of the year, and they just hadn't. So it'll be interesting to see if they've turned a corner or if it was simply because they were playing the Bears. So we shall see. And this game hit the under. Raiders at Lions. I took the Lions minus 6.5, and the Lions won by 12. This was my largest wager of the week, so I'm definitely ahead for the week from a cash standpoint. So this one was nice. The game wasn't even as close as the score made it sound. 7 of the Raiders' points came on a pick 6. The Lions had almost 500 yards on offense, and the Raiders barely cracked 200. This ended up being an under game. While I don't think the Lions are as good as the Eagles, Niners, Cowboys, there is a strong possibility they end up with the number 1 seed in the NFC. They have a very easy schedule moving forward. That NFC North is very weak at this point. And the Eagles' next 6 games are all against teams with a winning record. So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out. But the Lions at home in the playoffs could be a tough out. All right, a couple of things. There were 8 overs and 8 unders for the week, so a perfect 50%. The favorites covered in 8 games, but there were 2 pushes. So the underdogs only covered 6 times. But a couple of them did win outright. Another interesting thing, today at 4 o'clock Eastern Time is the trade deadline. There have been some pretty big deals at the trade deadline in the past couple of years, so we'll kind of see what happens this trade deadline. I looked at the early lines. I didn't see any overreactions or anything that was too out of whack, but it'll be interesting to see if there's any big trades and whether any of those trades affect those lines. Yesterday was an interesting day in the sports betting world. All four major U.S. sports had a game yesterday. You had the World Series, Monday Night Football, and then you had regular season NBA and NHL games. This doesn't happen very often, but we may end up with another one on Thursday, depending on how the World Series goes. So that was interesting. I'm also considering changing my format slightly. I'm leaning towards fewer games. It's really more of a quality versus quantity argument. I would obviously do all of the prime time and standalone games, and then some of the other ones that maybe catch my eye or that I feel like I have a good handle on would probably end up being 6 to 8 games a week. Leave a comment if you feel strongly one way or another, or if there's a specific game that you want me to look at. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and feel free to share on Facebook or any other social media outlet that you may have. I will post again on Thursday in time for the matchup between the Tennessee Titans at the Pittsburgh Steelers game. The early line on this one is Steelers by 2.5 with a very low total of 36.5. All right, thanks, and I will see you on Thursday.